The clanging of lockers, the murmur of conversations, and the faint squeak of sneakers on polished floors all blended into the background noise of Eastwood High. But amid the routine morning chaos, a storm was brewing, one not of thunder, but of testosterone and arrogance. At the center of it stood Kira Torres, a transfer student with a past no one knew, a quiet intensity in her gaze, and a presence that made people pause. She wasn't flashy, didn't dress to impress, and barely spoke unless necessary. But even in her silence, there was power. Kira's first few weeks at Eastwood High were relatively calm. She kept to herself, got straight A's, and avoided unnecessary attention. But for some people, especially teenage boys fueled by ego and entitlement, that kind of behavior was a challenge, a provocation, even. And the worst offenders were the Eastwood Lions, the high school football team. At the top of the pack were Brett "Tank" Morrison, the linebacker with a cruel streak, and his sidekicks, Chase and Logan, both notorious for their unfiltered mouths and bigger-than-brain attitudes. The football players saw the school like their playground, and anyone who didn't play along was either ignored or harassed. Kira wasn't afraid, but she also wasn't interested in becoming a headline. She just wanted to finish school in peace. But peace, in a place like Eastwood High, was an illusion. It all started when Brett bumped into her, accidentally, in the cafeteria, sending her lunch tray flying onto the floor. Kira calmly picked it up, didn't say a word, and walked away. But her lack of reaction annoyed Brett more than any insult would have. "She thinks she's better than us," he grumbled that day. From that moment on, she was a target. In the days that followed, the trio ramped up their petty games, shoulder checks in the hallway, fake trip-ups, even mocking her during assemblies. Still, Kira didn't react. She never flinched, never fought back. But she watched. And remembered. What none of them knew, what no one in Eastwood High could have guessed, was that Kira wasn't just quiet. She was calculating. Before moving to Eastwood, she was a national-level martial artist with a black belt in Muay Thai. Her father, a military instructor, raised her with discipline and resilience. And after losing her mother to cancer 2 years ago, she'd channeled her grief into the ring. Every strike she'd practiced, every drop of sweat she'd shed, was built on a promise: never let anyone take your power again. That promise was about to be tested. One Tuesday morning, the locker hallway was particularly crowded. Mid-semester stress had students rushing between classes, and noise levels were high. Kira was at her locker when the moment came. Brett, flanked by Chase and Logan, spotted her standing alone. Without hesitation, they marched toward her. "You think you're better than us, huh?" Brett said loudly enough for nearby students to turn their heads. He slammed the locker next to hers, making a loud clang. "Too good to talk. Too good to smile." Kira didn't respond. She slowly closed her locker and turned to face them. "Answer me when I talk to you," Brett growled and suddenly shoved her back. Her shoulders hit the lockers with a loud metallic thud. Gasps echoed around the hallway. But what happened next would be replayed in students' minds for the rest of the year. In a fluid, lightning-fast motion, Kira spun off the locker, twisted her hips, and drove her knee straight into Brett's abdomen. It wasn't just any knee strike. It was precise, brutal, and devastating. His breath vanished. He dropped to the floor with a choked groan, clutching his gut, eyes wide in pain. Chase and Logan, stunned, moved in, but she was ready. A roundhouse kick sent Logan stumbling back into a row of lockers. Chase hesitated just long enough for her to sweep his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard. Silence. Dead silence. Dozens of students stared, mouths agape. Phones came out, recording. Teachers rushed to the scene. Brett, the star linebacker, the big-mouthed bully, was whimpering on the floor. His football season. Over. Cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder ensured that. Kira stood calmly in the center, breathing lightly, eyes still. She didn't gloat. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The principal called her into the office. So did the school resource officer. But the video had already gone viral online. Parents, students, even local news stations weighed in. And when her martial arts history came to light, it became clear, she hadn't started the fight. She ended it. With control. With restraint. Some students called her a hero. Others were simply in awe. But one thing was certain, Eastwood High had changed. No longer could bullies operate without consequence. And Kiera Torres? She wasn't just the new girl anymore. Chapter 2, The Legend of Locker 119. The story of what happened outside Locker 119 spread like wildfire. By the time Kiera came to school the next day, she was a different person in the eyes of her peers. Not because she had changed, but because now, they saw her clearly. Her walk through the hallway was no longer quiet. Students whispered, nodded with respect, even smiled at her. The bullies had been humbled. The legend had been born. Brett didn't return to school for weeks. Word was, he was recovering at home, too embarrassed to show his face. Chase and Logan were suspended. Kiera. After a thorough investigation, she was cleared of all punishment. The school couldn't deny the self-defense claim, especially with half the student body backing her up. But Kiera didn't bask in the fame. She avoided interviews, ignored viral fame, and politely declined every "can I take a selfie with you" that came her way. Her focus remained on her education and training. She started staying late in the gym, running drills, sparring with the school's MMA coach, who quickly became her biggest fan. Over time, something changed at Eastwood High. Inspired by Kiera's strength, more students began standing up to injustice. A quiet, bookish kid named Tyler stopped hiding in the library and joined a boxing club. A girl named Maddie, often picked on for her weight, signed up for self-defense classes. Even teachers reported fewer bullying incidents. One day, a freshman girl named Lila approached Kiera. She was small, timid, and clearly terrified. "They shoved me in the bathroom," she said, tears welling. "I didn't know who else to talk to." Kiera looked her in the eye. "You did the right thing." That day, Kiera walked Lila home. The next week, she started an informal after-school program teaching self-defense. What began with 3 girls soon became 10, then 20. Even some boys joined. The school allowed her to turn the empty gymnasium into a safe space. And through it all, Kiera never raised her voice. Her power didn't come from violence, it came from presence. From purpose. From the knowledge that she wasn't just fighting bullies anymore. She was building strength in others. Meanwhile, Brett was struggling. His football future was uncertain. Scouts who once circled him like sharks were backing off. The injury wasn't permanent, but the shame. That stayed. He avoided school events. His former glory had turned into a lesson. One afternoon, during gym class, Brett returned. Students whispered. Some laughed. But he walked straight to Kiera, who was alone on the bleachers. I deserved what happened," he said, unable to meet her eyes. "And I'm sorry." Kiera looked at him calmly. "Then do better." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't friendship. But it was a chance. And Brett took it. Slowly, he began to change, volunteering at events, helping new students, even joining Kiera's self-defense class as a student, not a leader. People noticed. And respected it. By the end of the semester, the school that once turned a blind eye to bullying had become a place of unity. Not perfect, but better. All because one girl refused to be pinned against the lockers. Kiera's story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming power, and then sharing it.